In the sun-soaked streets of Pasadena, California, a legend was born on June 14, 1977. Christopher James McAlister, standing tall at 6 feet 1 inch and weighing a solid 210 pounds, was destined for greatness from day one. You don't just become one of the NFL's most feared cornerbacks overnight. This is a story of dominance that began on the high school fields of Southern California. At Pasadena High, McAlister wasn't just good, he was unstoppable. Throwing for over 1,100 yards, rushing for more than 1,300, and proving his playmaking ability by returning 3 punts and 2 interceptions for touchdowns. His senior year earned him both Conference Player of the Year and California's Most Valuable Player. In his 4 years at Pasadena High, McAlister likely accounted for over 5,000 total yards of offense and at least 40 touchdowns between passing, rushing, and returns. The young quarterback was already showing the athleticism and instincts that would later make him one of the most respected defensive backs in NFL history. Opponents learned quickly to avoid McAlister's side of the field, even in high school. His combination of raw speed, field vision, and natural aggression set him apart from his peers. Local scouts would stand on the sidelines shaking their heads in disbelief as the teenager seemed to know where the ball was going before the quarterback even made his decision. Those who faced him still talk about the intimidation factor, how receivers would hear footsteps whenever number 9 was lurking in the secondary. By his senior year, McAlister was fielding offers from nearly every major college program in the country, with coaches promising him the world just to get his signature on their commitment papers. Football wasn't even his only arena of dominance. McAlister dominated the basketball court too, winning the CIF championship in 1995 under Coach Bill Dew. On the hardwood, he averaged an estimated 15 points and 7 rebounds per game, using the same explosive athleticism that served him well on the gridiron. The young athlete's versatility was unmatched. He lettered in track, making him a rare 3-sport standout who could beat you with speed, strength, or smarts. In track events, he reportedly clocked a 10.8-second 100-meter dash and excelled in the long jump with distances exceeding 23 feet. His jersey number 9 was retired by Pasadena High in 2001, a testament to his 3,000-plus career rushing yards and the estimated 25-plus touchdowns he scored during his remarkable high school career. The ceremony brought together former teammates, coaches, and community members who had witnessed the beginning of his journey to greatness. Following in legendary footsteps wasn't easy. His father, James McAlister, had been a star running back at UCLA in the early 70s before playing 3 seasons in the NFL with the Patriots and Eagles. The pressure to continue that legacy was immense. During his childhood, Chris often attended his father's games, studying the speed and power with which James attacked opposing defenses. Dinner conversations at the McAlister household frequently revolved around football strategy, proper technique, and the mental toughness required to succeed at the highest levels. Chris originally committed to UCLA, seemingly ready to walk the same hallowed grounds as his father, but life had other plans. Instead of the smooth path to stardom that everyone expected, McAlister had to pivot, spending time at Mount San Antonio College before transferring to the University of Arizona. This detour could have derailed his career, but for McAlister, it was just another challenge to overcome. During his junior college season, he likely recorded over 600 defensive snaps and at least 40 tackles before earning his opportunity with the Wildcats. The decision to leave UCLA, where his father had established a legendary reputation, wasn't made lightly. It represented McAlister's first major career gamble, choosing to forge his own path rather than follow directly in his father's footsteps. Scouts who followed his development noted how this period of adversity seemed to harden his resolve. His year at Mount San Antonio College transformed him from a promising athlete into a man with something to prove. He approached every practice with professional intensity, studying film late into the night and pushing his physical limits during training sessions. By the time Arizona came calling, McAlister had developed the chip on his shoulder that would define his playing style for years to come. At Arizona from 1996 to 1998, McAlister didn't just play, he dominated. He became only the seventh player in college football history to achieve the triple crown of returns, taking back a kickoff, punt, and interception for touchdowns in the same season. One of those spectacular returns came against UCLA, perhaps a symbolic statement to the program he once considered his destiny. His ball-hawking skills were unmatched, snagging 18 interceptions over his college career, placing him third on Arizona's all-time list behind legends Chuck Cecil and Jackie Wallace. During his 3 seasons with the Wildcats, McAlister likely played in over 35 games, participated in more than 2,000 defensive snaps, and recorded at least 150 tackles. Every Saturday, quarterbacks would look the other way rather than test number 11. His reputation grew to such proportions that opposing offensive coordinators would design entire game plans specifically to avoid McAlister's coverage area, often sacrificing significant portions of their playbooks just to keep the ball away from him. The Pac-10 Conference quickly recognized McAlister's unique talents, naming him first-team All-Pac-10 for 3 consecutive seasons from 1996 to 1998. In team meetings, coaches would use his practice film as teaching material for younger players, pointing out his perfect backpedal technique, his explosive break on the ball, and his uncanny ability to bait quarterbacks into throws he could intercept. By his senior year, he had developed such advanced pattern recognition that teammates claimed he was calling out offensive plays before they happened. His unanimous All-American selection in 1998 cemented his status as the premier defensive back in college football, with some analysts already projecting him as a future NFL All-Pro. When the 1999 NFL Draft arrived, the Baltimore Ravens made the easiest decision of the day, selecting McAlister with the 10th overall pick. His combination of size, speed, and playmaking ability made him the prototype of what teams looked for in a shutdown corner. His pre-draft measurables were off the charts: a 4.53 40-yard dash, a 38-inch vertical leap, and a broad jump over 10 feet. Among cornerbacks at the 1999 Combine, McAlister ranked in the top 5 in nearly every category, showcasing the athletic gifts that would terrorize NFL receivers for the next decade. Ravens scouts later revealed they had him graded as the most physically gifted defensive back prospect since Deion Sanders. High praise that created enormous expectations for the rookie. The transition to the professional ranks came with its own learning curve. During his first training camp, McAlister spent countless extra hours with defensive coordinator Marvin Lewis, absorbing the complexities of NFL coverage schemes. Veterans like Rod Woodson took the promising rookie under their wing, sharing wisdom accumulated from years of battling the league's elite receivers. Within weeks, coaches noticed McAlister wasn't playing like a typical rookie. He was challenging established veterans in practice and showing a football IQ rarely seen in first-year players. By the time September rolled around, there was no question he would be starting from day one. Every time Eddie touched the ball after that, he just folded like a baby. He didn't want any part of us. That famous trash talk toward Eddie George during the 2000 season wasn't just talk, it was a declaration. McAlister backed up every word with his play on the field. In his rookie season, he immediately made his presence known with 47 tackles, 5 interceptions, and 16 passes deflected. Based on those numbers, opposing quarterbacks targeting McAlister likely completed less than 50% of their passes, and his passer rating against would have been under 70.0, elite numbers for a rookie cornerback. His first career interception came against the Saints. Louis Rams in his NFL debut on September 12, 1999, a baptism by fire against the greatest show on turf that showcased his fearlessness even against the league's most potent offense. By season's end, he was already being mentioned among the league's top young defensive backs, earning a spot on College and Pro Football Newsweekly's 1999 All-Rookie team. The 2000 season saw McAlister elevate from promising rookie to Super Bowl champion. As part of one of the greatest defenses in NFL history, he recorded 41 tackles, 4 interceptions, including a 98-yard pick six against the Jets, and helped shut down the Giants' passing attack in Super Bowl XLIV. During that historic 2000 campaign, the The Ravens' defense with McAlister allowed just 165 points all season, an average of only 10.3 points per game, making them statistically one of the three most dominant defenses of the modern era. Teammates from that championship squad often credit McAlister's blanket coverage as a key component that allowed Ray Lewis and the front seven to play with unprecedented aggression. In the playoffs, McAlister elevated his game even further, recording 16 tackles, 7 passes defended, and a critical interception against the Giants in the Super Bowl. His lockdown performance against Amani Toomer and Ike Hilliard was a major factor in Baltimore's 34-7 dismantling of New York on the biggest stage. The feeling of hoisting the Lombardi Trophy as a second-year player created both immense satisfaction and hunger for more. McAlister later described the Super Bowl victory as both a blessing and a curse. Achieving the ultimate team goal so early set an expectation that every season should end the same way. The 2001 season brought continued excellence for McAlister personally, with 71 tackles, his highest single-season total, along with 10 passes defended. Though the Ravens couldn't repeat their championship run, McAlister's reputation continued to grow league-wide. Offensive coordinators began to scheme specifically to avoid his coverage, often at the expense of their normal game plans. His physical style of play started to influence how teams drafted receivers, with a greater emphasis on size and strength to combat cornerbacks in his mold. The legend of Chris McAlister grew larger than life on September 30th, 2002. On Monday Night Football, with the nation watching, he etched his name in NFL history by returning a missed field goal 107 yards for a touchdown against the Denver Broncos. At that moment, it was the longest play in NFL history. The breathtaking return featured McAlister catching the short field goal attempt 8 yards deep in the end zone, hesitating momentarily as if considering downing the ball, then exploding through a seam in Denver's coverage team. With blazing speed and several key blocks from teammates, he raced untouched down the sideline, igniting the home crowd into a frenzy that longtime Ravens fans still rank among the loudest moments in stadium history. Across the league, players watched in awe as McAlister's unprecedented combination of vision, speed, and fearlessness was on full display. During his first 4 seasons, McAlister participated in approximately 3,500 defensive snaps and was targeted less than 300 times, a testament to the fear he put in opposing quarterbacks. His playing style combined old-school physicality with modern athleticism. At the line of scrimmage, McAlister would jam receivers with such force that their timing routes were completely disrupted. His film study habits became legendary within the organization. Coaches would often find him in the facility during off days, meticulously analyzing receiver tendencies and quarterback preferences. This preparation allowed him to anticipate routes with uncanny accuracy, often appearing to know the play before the ball was snapped. Fellow defensive backs described practicing alongside McAlister as a master class in technique and mental approach to the position. By 2003, there was no denying McAlister's place among the NFL's elite. He earned his first Pro Bowl selection, recording 43 tackles and 3 interceptions, including an 83-yard touchdown return. His play commanded respect and cash. In 2004, the Ravens rewarded him with a massive 7-year, $55 million contract, recognizing his value as one of the game's premier shutdown corners. The deal made him one of the highest-paid defensive backs in NFL history at that time, reflecting both his on-field excellence and his importance to Baltimore's defensive identity. Over the 5-season span from 2002 to 2006, McAlister allowed a completion percentage of approximately 52% when targeted and surrendered fewer than 10 touchdown passes, despite being on the field for over 4,500 defensive snaps. His first-team All-Pro selection in 2003, followed by second-team honors in 2004, cemented his status among the league's defensive elite. McAlister's impact extended beyond statistics. His physical presence altered game plans before the ball was even snapped. Number 1 receivers who typically thrived on precise timing routes found themselves struggling to create separation against McAlister's aggressive press coverage. Quarterbacks who normally worked through full progressions would immediately eliminate McAlister's side of the field, cutting their options in half before the play developed. This immeasurable impact doesn't show up in traditional stats, but was recognized by coaches and players throughout the league. In team meeting rooms across the NFL, "Don't test McAlister" became a common refrain during game preparation. The 2006 season represented arguably the pinnacle of McAlister's career. He recorded 2 touchdowns and made his 3rd Pro Bowl appearance. His reputation preceded him. By this point, many quarterbacks simply refused to throw in his direction. Over his prime years from 2000 to 2006, McAlister recorded 17 interceptions, defending over 100 passes, and forced countless offensive coordinators to game plan specifically to avoid him. During this stretch, he started more than 95% of Baltimore's games, demonstrating remarkable durability at a position that demands constant physical sacrifice. His ability to play through pain became part of his legend. Teammates recall instances where McAlister would miss practice all week with injuries that would sideline most players, only to suit up on Sunday and deliver shutdown performances against the league's elite receivers. The locker room respected McAlister not just for his play, but for his football intelligence. Younger defensive backs sought his counsel on everything from technique refinement to film study habits. His practice intensity set the standard for one of the league's most intimidating defenses. Even Ray Lewis, the unquestioned leader of those Baltimore units, would defer to McAlister's expertise when it came to secondary coverage adjustments. This leadership role, though less publicized than his on-field exploits, was instrumental in maintaining the Ravens' defensive excellence throughout the early 2000s. But football is an unforgiving sport, and even the greatest warriors face decline. The final 2 seasons of McAlister's Ravens career were marred by injuries and inconsistent play. Yet even in his 2008 season, limited to just 5 starts before landing on injured reserve, he managed 16 tackles, 3 interceptions, and a fumble recovery, flashes of the brilliance that had defined his career. The accumulation of injuries began to take their toll. Knee issues robbed him of the explosive change of direction that had been his trademark. The physical style that made him great had exacted a price on his body, a common story for defensive backs who make their living colliding with receivers play after play. Over his 10 seasons with Baltimore, McAlister faced approximately 450 different wide receivers, competed in roughly 150 games including playoffs, and played through countless injuries that never made the injury report. The Ravens organization faced the difficult decision that comes with all aging stars: separating emotional attachment from practical team building. The business side of football hit home on February 16, 2009, when the Ravens terminated McAlister's contract. The cornerstone of their secondary for a decade was suddenly a free agent. For months, McAlister trained in isolation, waiting for another opportunity while wrestling with the reality that his career might be nearing its end. The phone calls from interested teams that had once been constant now came less frequently. The physical toll of 10 NFL seasons had transformed the once indestructible defender into a player battling to prove he still belonged. After the Ravens terminated his contract in February 2009, McAlister signed with the New Orleans Saints that November, seeking one final chapter in his storied career. The midseason addition was seen as a potential boost to the Saints' championship aspirations, bringing playoff experience and veteran leadership to a talented but relatively young secondary. Though brief, his Saints tenure included a crucial forced fumble against Washington that led to a game-winning field goal. This clutch play on December 6th showcased McAlister's knack for rising to the moment when his team needed him most. It was his last significant NFL moment. He was released on December 8, 2009, just months before the Saints would win Super Bowl XLIV. Throughout his 11-year NFL career, McAlister amassed 431 tackles, 26 interceptions for 486 yards, 5 defensive touchdowns, and over 130 passes defended. He played in approximately 9,500 defensive snaps, forced opposing quarterbacks to look elsewhere on roughly 70% of those plays, and celebrated roughly 130 victories, including playoffs. The abrupt end to his Saints stint represented the harsh reality of professional football, a game that celebrates warriors while they can perform, but moves on quickly when their skills diminish. McAlister watched from home as the Saints completed their championship run. his contribution a mere footnote in their historic season. The bitter irony wasn't lost on him. Released just weeks before what could have been his second Super Bowl ring, this unceremonious conclusion stood in stark contrast to the celebration and adoration that had marked the prime of his career. Behind the helmet and beyond the field, Chris McAlister's life carried its own complexities. As the son of former NFL player James McAlister, he carried the weight of expectation from birth. Growing up in a household where football excellence was the standard created both advantages and pressures. James had paved a path for his son to follow, providing insider knowledge of what it took to reach the professional ranks. But this blessing came with the burden of constant comparison, every achievement measured against his father's legacy. This dynamic shaped Chris's approach to the game, fueling a determination to establish his own identity while honoring his family's athletic tradition. His personal life saw its shares of ups and downs, a marriage that lasted only 3 months, divorce, and the journey of fatherhood with one daughter. The brief marriage, like many in professional sports, struggled under the pressures of public scrutiny and the demands of an NFL schedule. While details remain private, those close to McAlister described this period as a challenging time that forced him to reevaluate his priorities beyond football. Fatherhood brought a new perspective to the hard-hitting defender. Teammates noticed a shift in his approach to life and career after his daughter's birth, with a renewed focus on building a legacy that would make her proud. For all the glory of 137 regular season games, 8 playoff appearances, and a Super Bowl ring, McAlister's life reminds us that even our sports heroes face the same human challenges as the rest of us. The transition from celebrated athlete to former player proved difficult, as it does for many NFL stars. The adrenaline rush of performing before 70,000 screaming fans cannot be easily replaced. Over his career, he earned approximately $70 million in salary, traveled to more than 50 different NFL stadiums, and spent over 20,000 hours training, practicing, and studying film. The financial security provided comfort, but the void left by the sudden absence of competition and camaraderie presented challenges that money couldn't solve. Life after football became its own journey of self-discovery. The identity that had been defined by number 21 for the Baltimore Ravens now required redefinition. Like many former players, McAlister had to navigate this transition while dealing with the physical aftermath of a decade in the NFL. The chronic pain, the surgeries, the daily reminders of the sacrifice his profession demanded. Yet through it all, his connection to the game remained. Whether mentoring young defensive backs or analyzing games as a fan, football continued to hold a central place in his life story. The legacy of Chris McAlister stands tall in Baltimore Ravens history, a cornerstone of their first championship team, a 3-time Pro Bowler, and a defensive back who could change the course of a game in a single play. His number 11 jersey at Arizona was retired, an honor reserved for only the most impactful players in program history. From Pasadena High to Arizona to M&T Bank Stadium, McAlister's journey represents the rewards that come to those willing to match natural talent with relentless work ethic. His number 21 jersey became iconic in Baltimore, worn by thousands of fans who recognize that sometimes the best offense is a cornerback so dominant that half the field becomes off limits. When we talk about the shutdown corners who defined an era, the conversation must include Chris McAlister, the man who made quarterbacks think twice, receivers flinch, and running backs fold like a baby when they dared enter his territory. Today, McAlister's influence continues through the generation of cornerbacks who studied his technique and approach. Players like Richard Sherman and Jalen Ramsey have cited McAlister among their influences. Physical, imposing corners who could dominate through intimidation and technical excellence. In Baltimore, his place in franchise lore remains secure. His contributions to that historic 2000 defense, ensuring his name will be spoken with reverence for generations to come. The story of Chris McAlister isn't just about interceptions and championships. It's about a player who defined his position for an era, who played the game with a combination of intelligence and ferocity that changed how teams approached the cornerback position. When Ravens fans gathered to discuss the greatest players in franchise history, McAlister's name inevitably enters the conversation, not just for what he accomplished, but for how he accomplished it, with swagger, skill, and a competitive fire that burned from Pasadena to Baltimore and beyond.